Hi, welcome to this episode of What's Going On with Shipping. This is Sal Mercogliano, Associate Professor of History at Campbell University, a former merchant mariner, and an adjunct instructor in maritime industry policy at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Apologize for not getting this video up sooner. Had some technical issues, but hopefully we've resolved them, and this will be going up today. So what I wanted to do is go through the report done by the United States Central Command. This is the military organization. The United States divides the world up into military commands, and Central Command is that organization that oversees what is commonly referred to as the Middle East, the junction of Europe, Asia, and Africa. And they did this report on the attack against the motor tanker Mercer Street, which took place on 29 and 30 July, and actually 31st of July too. And they have basically identified the Iranians as the culprit for this attack. So I want to walk you through their 1990s PowerPoint presentation they have here and be able to talk a little bit about some of their findings. So first, right at the very beginning here, in their executive conclusion, they determined this: the confluence of multiple components with very specific and matching identities to previously exploited and known Iranian one-way attack UAVs. First off, grammatically, it's an incomplete sentence. But anyway, basically what they're doing is that they're matching the components that they found to previous Iranian use of these UAVs, these unmanned aerial vehicles. The use of Iranian designed and produced one-way attack, they use the term kamikaze, and I don't like that term. Kamikazes, it had people in them. This is not. This is a completely non-person UAV, is a growing trend in the region. They've been actively used by Iran and other proxies against coalition forces in the region to include targets in Saudi Arabia and Iraq. They've targeted oil refineries in Saudi Arabia, targets in Iraq, and we've seen them used as anti-personnel weapons too. So this attack took place on 29 July. And what we found out is, first, there were not one, but two separate attacks. So early on 29 July, the Liberian flagged motor tanker Mercer Street. Now, remember, the Iranians don't have a problem with the Liberians. What they have the problem with is not the Japanese owners. It's with the Israeli operating company, which is Zodiac Maritime Limited, owned by an Israeli billionaire. Came an attack from two one-way UAVs while transiting in international waters off the coast of Oman. They were sailing from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania all the way up to Oman, and they were hit. The first attack failed. Now, there are reports that the first attack involved flares. What we do find out from the Central Command report is that components of that first UAV were recovered. So some debris was recovered. So we're not sure if the UAV struck the vessel, glanced off the vessel. We're just not sure. The second attack was the deliberate attack. This is the one that killed two personnel on board, a Romanian and a British citizen. Now, what we do find out here is a couple of things. Number one, the second attack obviously was alerted to the crew so that the crew took stations inside the vessel. They basically assumed they're anti-piracy areas. If you remember with the Asphalt Princess, the crew set the ship as not under command. They basically turned off the engines, made the vessel drift while they hunkered down in a secure area within the ship that they can basically wait for rescue. In this case, what we do know is the Romanian master, the captain of the vessel, stayed on the bridge of the vessel along with obviously elements of the security team while the rest of the crew went below. The attack, and we're going to go more depth in these pictures here in a few minutes, resulted in the death of the Romanian master. He was up on the bridge, obviously, along with one of the security detachment personnel. These security teams, I should mention, are designed to resist borders. They're designed to repel basically armed attacks. So they're usually outfitted with small arms, maybe some machine guns, potentially rocket launchers, but largely small scale weaponry. They are not designed with an anti-aircraft, anti-UAV capability. Very hard to hit a UAV coming at you in this kind of suicide style of attack. The crew initiated those procedures. They locked down, but obviously, again, the hit on the pilot house, the bridge of the vessel, was enough to kill the master and this one security personnel. The company informed the United Kingdom's Maritime Trade Organization, the UKMTO, who in turn contacted the Naval Forces Central Command, which is the U.S. Fifth Fleet. That's in Bahrain. From there, we find out that Central Command immediately directed assets into the area. So they sortied the aircraft carrier Ronald Reagan, which is in the Arabian Sea, guarding or overseeing the withdrawal of American forces from Afghanistan, along with one of its escorts, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer Mitcher, to close on Mercer Street. They also dispatched a drone. Not sure whose drone it was, probably one of the larger Air Force ones. The Reagan sortied a helicopter to ascertain the situation on board Mercer Street, and later repelled in an explosive ordnance team to examine the damage to the vessel, gather forensic evidence to better assess what type of attack this was. And what we get here in this executive forensic conclusion here is that the verified components of the Iranian one-way attack UAV was identical to previously identified Iranian unmanned one-way attack systems. They have evidence from those attacks in Saudi Arabia and Iraq, and they've been able to match these up to similar attacks. And they confirmed that the UAV was explosive laden. So this just wasn't a UAV flying into the vessel, but there was explosives on the vessel. Question is, how much? And what was the intent of the vessel? So here's some close-up images of this. These are some of the fiber optic, carbon fiber probably elements here that make up the UAV, tail assemblies, parts of the components, probably parts of the wings that ripped off when it hit. This is up on the deck above the pilot house, so the very top deck of the vessel above the bridge, and you can tell that by that stairwell heading down aft, and you'll see more images here that match up to the vessel. Here are images of this family of UAVs, these unmanned attack vehicles that the Iranians use. They use a very unique kind of delta wing configuration. They don't have a wing and a tail. Instead, the wing and tail are designed into one large triangular wing. Very popular design from the 1950s and 60s on jet interceptor aircraft. The F-106, 102 series of Convair and the like. You can see images of them from their introduction in May of 2014 through remnants that were used in attacks in Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and then these videos posted by Iran using them to hit armored vehicles and structures. And basically, again, the forensic conclusion matches these up to this style of weaponry. As you can see here on this image of it diving on the structure, very hard to shoot down an object like that with small arms, obviously. And when it hits, you'll see one of the things that you're seeing here, those wings shear off while the body of the UAV penetrates into the vessel. So again, here's those images right there. You see those pieces of it right there. We're going the wrong way here. So let's go back down here. There we go. So this is an image from the bridge, above the bridge, above the pilot house. So this is the pilot house right here. Looking forward is this way. This is the port bridge wing up here, starboard bridge wing back here. This is the aft part of the wheelhouse here. And this is where they hit. They didn't hit the bridge. They didn't hit the wheelhouse, which is very fortunate. They didn't knock out the piloting area of the vessel, but they did hit a room just aft of that, probably a chart room of some kind. You can see the black hole where it penetrated in. There's that stairwell, ladder well that goes down to the deck, down to the bridge deck. This area right here, there's usually nothing on top of the bridge at all. And then you have some debris right here. And so look at some of these images a little more. Here are some of those elements from the UAV that was collected. Here's the hole. This is looking aft. The blue object right here is the ship's stack. It's behind the house. Here's that ladder well I was talking about heading down to the bridge. This is above the bridge. Here's the mast right here. And you'll notice how the steel, and again, I'm not sure what's the component here. It's either a very light steel or aluminum that's built on this vessel. Again, this is not a warship. This is a commercial ship, and weight is everything on a vessel. So you're going to build this at the lightest material possible. So this is not designed to resist anything. You'll see the steel is bent down, although you will notice that one of the reasons you could tell there was probably an explosion is some of the steel is then bent back. And again, I'm not sure if the steel or aluminum, and the scorch marks here from where there was a explosion of some kind. You can see the railing bent right there. And you can see how basically this is about 6 feet across, probably is what you're looking at here. So that would be the center section of that UAV going through, and the wings would have sheared off as it comes in. Again, another object. This is looking at it again. There's that bent rails across. You can get an image of the person here, how large this hole is. This is from the room just after the bridge, looking up. You can see the mainmast right there. You're looking forward at this point. A couple of things to note that struck me right off the bat. The paint isn't scorched. It's not burnt. So you didn't start a fire on board. It was just an explosion, probably a very high velocity explosion. You can see some pock marks in the steel or aluminum, again, not sure what exactly this is. And you can see part of the overhead has just kind of come apart. This doesn't appear to be a large order explosion. But again, getting hit by UAV in any type of explosion is significant on a vessel. Again, some more components of of the UAV right there. You can see this is probably the ends of the wings right there, where there were those little fins on them. This is looking aft, looking through that window there. You can see the aft stack, that blue stack right there. You're looking at the coming in where the UAV came in. Again, notice how the bridge structure is bowed out here. All the debris that's right there. You can see a little more right there. You can still see part of the stack where that steel was bent down. And then this next picture shows you looking forward. There's the bridge. You can see the wheelhouse right in there. So that's where you pilot the vessel from. Probably the Romanian master stayed on the bridge by himself, maybe with the security team, while the rest of the crew went below. He may have kept a helmsman with him. They may have put it on automatic steering. The master may have been steering the vessel himself. It would be very hard to maneuver this vessel, the Mercer Street, to avoid a UAV. You put that wheel hard over left and right, but this is a tanker. It's not a destroyer. It's not a frigate. It's not a fast vessel. So maneuvering away from this would be difficult. Although, again, it did not strike the pilot house, which is fairly significant. And I think that is the last. Yeah, that's the last image we have right there on this right here. So let me go back up here to the image from above and just really wrap this up. So what does this mean? So obviously the Iranians are not trying to sink this vessel. This is not going to sink a vessel. These type of UAVs with limited explosive power is not going to sink a vessel. This is harassment. This is terrorism. This is trying to cause havoc. Maybe convince crews not to sail vessels, maybe to send messages to the Israeli-owned company about this. Understand, back in the 1980s, and this has been going on since 2019, these kind of tit-for-tat attacks on vessels. Now, attacks on vessels in this area have been going on since the 1980s, the tanker war between Iran and Iraq. But even in the midst of the Iran-Iraq tanker war, when missiles were flying, mines were being laid, bombs being dropped, tankers being sunk, crews being killed into the hundreds, we never saw the flow of oil and commerce ever stop. What you may see here is an increase in insurance rates for Israeli operating companies. You may see it a little harder to get crews to go on board now that deaths have happened. But again, shipping companies will offer more money and it'll keep going. Even in the height of Somali piracy, world shipping never stopped. Insurance rates ticked up just a slight bit, but world commerce kept flowing. Nothing really stopped in the movement of goods across. So a lot of this has to do, again, like I said, with this tit for tat. This is an imagery released by the Iranian news service, which shows attacks against Iranian vessels in the Mediterranean and Red Sea, which they blame on Israel and Saudi Arabia. And so, as I said before, this is part of that escalation between those nations, that Cold War that now is involving merchant shipping. And I think that is a significant element right there. We're seeing these style of attacks take place. We're not going to see the disruption of shipping. We're going to see shipping keep moving. Even though the U.S. provided escort for this vessel, they responded to the attack. They are not going to provide escorts for a Liberian flag, Japanese-owned, Israeli-managed company on a daily basis. What you may see is the introduction of other naval forces. Now, obviously, the Liberian Navy is not coming. That's not going to show up. But Japan may, Israel may. We may see that expansion. And again, when you introduce naval forces into the area, that's going to change things. Understand, these security detachments right now on board, these privately hired security detachments, obviously do not have the capability to stop these UAVs. That's going to take either more armament for them or military equipment. And that's an escalation that could potentially happen. And when you create escalations, you have the potential for conflict between different states. Right now, this is involving commercial ships, and we've seen the first two killed. The U.S., Britain, and Israel have vowed to retaliate in some way. We just don't know what it's going to be. Those two Iranian ships that went up to St. Petersburg for the Russian Naval Day are sailing back. Who knows what happens to them on the way back? We've seen these style of attacks in the Red Sea, Eastern Mediterranean against Iranian vessels. We'll probably see some sort of response along those ways. We just don't know yet. But this is where it stands right now, and I wanted to get this out to you. Another thing I want to make you aware of, and if you're interested, I'll post it in the show notes. I did this weekend a podcast with Commander Salamander and Eagle One of Midrats. This is a naval podcast. It's a great one. It's my fourth time on there with these guys. It's their 600 episode. And one of the things we talked about was shipping in the time of COVID. So if you're interested in an hour-long discussion about COVID and shipping and everything like that, I'll have the link in the show notes. You can take a look to it and enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos when they come out. Also, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. And if there's anything, questions you have or comments or things you'd like to see in the future, please leave them in the comments page. And I always try to answer back all the comments that I receive. Of course, those of you who are nice. The mean ones, I don't tend to answer back so much, but I read them anyway. So anyway, this is Sal signing off. See you next time.